A common thread runs through the many tributes that were paid to Laurence Olivier after his death this summer. It is that this actor, whose majestic performances enthralled so many audiences, possessed more than his share of courage and of daring. And it's those qualities of courage and daring which he showed both in his working life and in the way that he faced up to illness in his later years that's being celebrated here at Westminster Abbey today. He was, by common consent, the greatest English actor of his generation. And many of his colleagues have come here today to pay him that tribute. Sir Alec Guinness will be giving the address. Sir John Gielgud, Dame Peggy Ashcroft, Sir John Mills, Albert Finney will all be giving readings. And filling the stalls of the Abbey, many, many more from the worlds of the stage and film and television, which he bestrode. The names from 3 generations of stage and film and television have come here to pay tribute to Lord Olivier today, and you'll recognize many famous faces among the congregation. Peter Barkworth there in the center, and people who've, Geraldine McEwen, Dave Clark of the Dave Clark Five at the back there, and Wendy Hiller, many who've played with Olivier, many who are great admirers of his, people as well from the production of television and film and theater, going back across the whole long period of his reign over the dramatic art here in England. In the choir, distinguished figures also from the theatre, Lord Grade there, who ran ATV for many years with his wife. And there are representatives here as well from Commonwealth countries, representatives from politics and from the royal family. And in the nave, this huge congregation, again, some of them actors, Sir Richard Attenborough there, who's representing the Queen Mother, Sir Alec Guinness, who'll be giving the address. And the precentor behind, Alan Luff, will be conducting some of the prayers. And in this part of the Abbey, not today, but next year, the ashes of Lord Olivier will be interred in Poets' Corner, suitably beneath the statue of William Shakespeare, whose words he served so well all his life, and side by side with 2 other great actors from different centuries, David Garrick from the 18th century, and just near him the other smaller plaque to Sir Henry Irving from the 19th century. And near him, when he's interred there, will be one of the great characters he played, perhaps the most famous, the memorial to Henry V, the hands sculpted after Olivier's own hands at the end of the war when it was restored. And another great part, the wife of Richard III. Richard III, of course, one of Olivier's great performances, just nearby when he comes to lie here in perpetuity. Now the congregation is waiting here for the arrival of the family. Jack Lemmon, the American comedian, at the left there, Robert Hardy on the right. Simon Callow with the black moustache, you can just recognize perhaps in the row there. And all of these people here will have their own particular memories of Laurence Olivier, Dora Bryan there. Either memories of parts they've played with him, or perhaps memories of their own favorite roles that they've seen him play. Alan Bennett, the playwright there. Let's just look back for a moment at some of those famous performances that Lord Olivier played. During his long life, Laurence Olivier created a collection of characters that was almost Dickensian in its range, and to most of them he brought personal magnetism and a palpable sense of danger, both in conception and in the physical risks he so often took. As a young actor, married to Jill Esmond, He knew success early, both on stage and film, but his talent to astound didn't surface until 1935, when, aged 28, he alternated the roles of Romeo and Mercutio with John Gielgud. Unlike the poetic Gielgud, Olivier shattered the traditional Shakespearean mould with a virile performance which put meaning before music in the verse. Many critics were outraged, but time was to prove that with that one performance he'd changed the direction of classical acting in our time. Enthusiasm for his vivid realism was gaining ground when he was lured to Hollywood. He became one of its major romantic stars.
Kathy, you're not thinking of that other world now.
Smell the heather. Eustace, fill my arms with heather. All they can hold. Come on.
Kathy, you're still my queen.
In 1940, he married Vivian Leigh, and for almost 20 years they were the theatre's most stylish couple. Soon after the marriage, the intensely patriotic Olivier returned to wartime Britain to serve in the Fleet Air Arm. Not for long, though, because he was asked by the Information Ministry to make a film of Shakespeare's Henry V. The result, released in 1944, was a triumph for Olivier, both as star and director. On screen, Olivier followed Henry V with Hamlet, which won Academy Awards for Best Film and Best Actor. And while making it, he was invested at 39 as the youngest knight in theatre history. On stage, meanwhile, his preeminence was reconfirmed by his Richard III, also later put on film.
Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this sun of York, and all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean, buried. Now are our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our bruised arms hung up for monuments, our stern alarums changed to merry meetings, our dreadful marches to delightful measures.
In 1957, Olivier again astounded his audience by lending his name and his talent to a controversial anti-establishment movement in the theatre. The role, a seedy song and dance man. The play, John Osborne's The Entertainer. In 1960, Olivier remarried Joan Plowright, one of the finest actresses of her generation, who was to bring him new happiness as a family man. Professionally, he continued to serve the theatre at the expense of his pocket, as the first director of the Chichester Festival Theatre. And then, in 1962, as first director of the National Theatre. During almost 10 years in that post, he masterminded its golden age. Created a life peer in 1970, he always remained plain Larry to his colleagues. At the National, he also gave some of his greatest performances, including an unforgettable Othello. But then, for the first time, he was laid low by what became a series of illnesses. Outfacing death, he nevertheless was forced to limit himself to films and television, which was to be the medium for his last Shakespearean role as King Lear. Shortly before his death, he wrote that he wondered if he himself hadn't become a little like Lear, wearing an invisible theatrical crown to which he was very attached and which he would not give up. And he warned any would-be usurper who wanted the crown that first he'd have to dust clean the blackboard of the chalk of memory. And he defiantly promised him that at the entrance of the Chamber of Gold would stand an old man, legs apart, back straight and erect, eyes piercing, barring the way.